So it's no doubt we're all rooting for Adrianette. They're our endgame ship. If you see in my last video essay on how Adrian and Marinette mirror each other, you'd understand why Adrianette is endgame. But to summarize, mirroring doesn't only mean how two characters are opposites, but it's more so how their opposite traits balance each other out. Adrian and Marinette need each other from an emotional standpoint, but also their mirroring traits are a plot device which drives certain storylines. It explains why Adrian makes certain decisions that Marinette may not make. Where one lacks, the other is more than fully equipped to help. For example, Adrian is more empathetic, allowing him to connect to individuals one-on-one, whereas Marinette is more sympathetic, enabling her to speak through large crowds without any personal attachments affecting her deliverance of speech. And upon understanding that Adrian and Marinette are equal and complementary forces, thus is born the love square. One of the most central aspects of the show, if not the central aspect. It's what's keeping us watching the show. The love square is what I'd consider an enthralling storyline. We've heard of love triangles, which I am not a fan of for reasons that I won't be going into. But here in Miraculous Ladybug, we have different ships, different dynamics, but the same two people. It's genius, but also gives me a huge headache. But how does it work? Well, if you want to know, in this video brought to you by the one and only Your Girl the Cartoon Hotspot, I'll be diving deep into the complexity of the love square. Little heads up for those of you interested in what this video will entail. I'll be talking about what exactly the love square is, what it means and its significance, then talking about each individual ship in the square and analysing their dynamics to establish why they act the way they do, depending upon which ship it is. For returning subscribers, welcome back. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. Hopefully you'll be sticking around for more video essays like this. Be sure to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and turn on that bell button for post notifications. Without further ado, let's begin. So what is the love square? Technically at this point it's a hexagon, or was it an octagon? If you count Multi-Mouse, Aspic and Catwalker, so add the 3, carry the 4, multiply by 12, subtract 2. Yeah, it's really complicated. Would not advise trying to calculate, you'll drive yourself insane. Anyways, the love square is a combination of 4 ships between 2 characters, and these ships differ pertaining to whether Adrian and Marinette are in their civilian or superhero form. We have Adrianette, which I like to refer to as the parent ship, because without Adrianette, the other ships do not exist. And remember, Adrian and Marinette make up Ladybug and Cat Noir. Then we have Lady Noir, which to me is like the polar opposite of Adrianette, in both character and dynamic. But you find that Lady Noir is essentially what Adrianette wants to be, but can't be, for reasons I'll of course be pointing out later on in this video. We also have Ladrian, in which only one of them is in their superhero form, Ladybug, whilst the other, Adrian, is in his civilian form. And funny enough, Marishat can also be said to be the polar opposite to Ladrian, in the sense that whilst Ladrian obviously has romantic attraction between the characters, Marishat, on the surface level, do not. Another way I like to interpret the love square is Ladybug and Cat Noir, order and chaos. Marinette and Adrian, chaos and order. Adrian and Ladybug, order and order. Marinette and Cat Noir, chaos and chaos. In a way that brings about order. What I mean by chaos and order is exactly that. For example, as Lady Noir, Ladybug is the calm and collected individual. Order, whilst Cat Noir is impulsive and somewhat reckless. Chaos. For Adrianette, it's the opposite, but it's balanced. With the case of Marishat, who I'd argue is both chaos and chaos, both of them act on impulse and emotion, it's still balanced as they can see where each other is coming from and why a situation has elicited a specific emotional response. Now that we've grazed the surface of what the love square is in a nutshell, we can talk about its significance and its meaning pertaining to our everyday life. Essentially, the love square teaches us that there are sides to other people we're not aware of, or that we are aware of, but we choose not to acknowledge. This is really important because I think it's super smart how we're transported to the minds of Adrian and Marinette themselves. Unintentionally, we tend to separate the two characters from their alter egos because Adrian and Marinette separate their alter egos from themselves. And because they've done that, they ended up falling in love with only one version of each other. Notice it's the version they've projected and want to be, but at the same time, it's also their side that they tried to hide. Marinette as Ladybug projects this self-confident girl boss side of her, but she has only shown that side of herself to one side of Adrien, Cat Noir, which is why Cat Noir has ultimately fallen in love with Ladybug. It's more complex with Adriennette because to me, I think Cat Noir is who Adrien wants to be, but that's not who Marinette has fallen in love with. She fell in love with the side Adrien resents, the side he hides as Cat Noir, his civilian form, who is more reserved and less outgoing. Completely random but somewhat related, think of it like planting seeds for an apple tree but instead it grows to be a peach tree. The side Adrien and Marinette have shown to each other have done opposite effects of what they intended, because if it did do what they intended, they'd already be together by now. But they're not. I think what I enjoy the most about Miraculous Ladybug's love square and why it's so pivotal to the storyline is because Adrien and Marinette are both on different journeys/routes to the same destination. I don't think we talk enough about Ladybug and Cat Noir being special because they're Adrien and Marinette, not the other way around. The fandom tends to fall into the trap of saying Marinette is special because she's Ladybug, when really it's Ladybug is special because she's Marinette. The same can be said for Adrien. Deep down, Adrien and Marinette don't give themselves enough credit. They see their alter egos as something they can never be or aren't capable of becoming due to self-esteem issues rooted in different circumstances and problems, i.e. Gabriel's abuse towards Adrien and Marinette being bullied for years. But they're both on a journey of self-discovery and understanding that their alter egos are one and the same. Their alter egos are incredible because it's them, deep down. They just need a little shove in the right direction of embracing both sides as one. They tend to separate them, and so naturally the fandom does the same too. And I think that's pretty interesting. Essentially why I enjoy Kuroneko and in some aspects Ephemeral. Particularly Ephemeral, the minute Adrien told Ladybug who he is, it's like he was relieved of the burden of separating his two sides. That's why he began acting more like Cat Noir in his civilian form, and eventually Marinette merged all the reasons why she loves Adrien with all the reasons why she loves Cat Noir and embraced both sides as one. Do you now see that the actions and decisions of one of them influences the actions and decisions of the other? As soon as Adrien embraced both of his sides, Marinette did the same and loved him for him. But as we know, Adrien and Marinette are equal and complementary forces, so it has to balance out in some way. Because as opposed to Adrien, Marinette is further ahead on her journey when it comes to showing both sides of herself. We immediately saw the impact being Ladybug has on Marinette. She even stated that being Ladybug has made her a better Marinette, and this is in reference to her self-confidence. Like, the first day she became Ladybug was also the first day she stood up to Chloe. Although Marinette may not fully realize and acknowledge it, she does show her Ladybug side a lot. It's why she's class representative and why she stands up for everyone. This explains why Adrien said, "You're our everyday Ladybug," because it's not a far-fetched theory. He can only picture one person being Ladybug, Marinette. Further evidence is Cat Blanc and Kwame Buster. He's always been so close to figuring out that when he does, it's not even a surprise to him. Adrien's ability to understand that Marinette and Ladybug are very similar stems from Marinette's ability to show that her and Ladybug aren't two different people, whereas Marinette's inability to comprehend why Adrien and Cat Noir have completely different personality stems from Adrien's inability to show his two sides regardless of which form he's in. And that is how they mirror each other and why we have the love square in the first place. Now let's deep dive into each individual ship of the square, starting with Adriennette, who I think is probably the most complex ship, and then Lady Noir. It's easier to talk about both of them in one point. Adriennette started off with Marinette misunderstanding Adrien, but soon realizing she completely misread the situation as Adrien opens up to her, even going as far as being vulnerable around her, explaining how making friends is new to him. From then on, Marinette has been unsuccessfully trying to confess her feelings to him. Adriennette is the opposite of Lady Noir, which is interesting because Adriennette make up Lady Noir. Compared to Lady Noir, Adriennette do not have the luxury of the masks. And what I mean by that is, because they don't have the mask, they're sort of prevented from acting how they want to act. I've always believed that the mask is a benefit but also a hindrance. If Adrien and Marinette never became heroes, they would have never discovered a side of themselves that they've always had but had a little bit of trouble showing. Therefore, Adriennette aren't at that level that Lady Noir have reached. Yeah, Marinette is in love with Adrien, but she trusts Cat Noir. And to me, I think trust always comes before love in any relationship, fictional or not. It's actually the other way around for Adrien. Adrien trusts Marinette, but he doesn't love her, or at least he hasn't realized he loves her. Going back to my point on the mask being both a blessing and a hindrance, because Ladybug and Cat Noir have relied so much on their masks being a leeway for them to be more confident and more outgoing, it's sort of like, oh wait, I can't act like this now because I'm Marinette, not Ladybug. A relatable example I can think of is internet versus online. When you're used to talking to a person online, sometimes it becomes difficult to talk to them in person, because at least with an online persona, you can project the side of yourself you want people to see, which is usually your best self. Back to Lady Noir though. If anything, the mask should help them be more confident in their civilian form. And don't get me wrong, it has, but not as much as it should have. Also, as Ladybug, she easily confides in Cat Noir because the mask protects her. As far as Marinette is concerned, Cat Noir is merely a stranger to her, so there is no personal attachment, so she isn't afraid in confiding in him because he doesn't know her and therefore can't use her vulnerabilities against her. Ultimately, why Lady Noir have had the most growth, whereas Adrianette has been relatively stagnant. Adrianette is stagnant on both parties. Adrien is more comfortable in confiding in Marinette, but he's not comfortable in showing all of his sides of his personality. On the other hand, Marinette is fine with showing her confident side to Adrien, but she's not comfortable in being vulnerable around him. Marinette's character arc is all about control. She has that control as Ladybug, but not as Marinette, because once you open up to someone, you don't know what they can do with that information. They can use that against you, and Marinette isn't willing to take that risk, which is why we see her make ridiculous stories, make gifts for Adrien's next 35 birthdays, do whatever she can except tell Adrien how she feels. But since Cat Noir doesn't know who she is and she doesn't know who he is, does it really matter what he does with that information? No. Some people are more comfortable with venting to a stranger than to their close friends. Ironically, by being vulnerable around Cat Noir, it's what has made their relationship and superhero partnership stronger. They're literally in sync. Now Adrianette just needs to do the same thing. Now Ladrian. Ladrian is just cute. Some people, including myself, also find them a little boring because they already have an established romantic connection between them. So there's no angst, there's no anticipation. We can't root for them to get together when technically they're already kind of together, but it hasn't been outright stated between them. Ladrian is just full of blushing and stuttering and really cute moments, but other than that, there's nothing more to it. But it's important to know why. Ladrian is what I'd call the perfect ship, but obviously, as we know, no relationship is perfect. What I mean by perfect is that Ladrian is the ship that projects the best self that others sees. Everyone sees Ladybug as perfect and everyone sees Adrien as perfect, so they both have this idealized version of each other in their heads, which prevent them from truly being able to move forward in their relationship, which is also why Ladrian hasn't had any screen time since season 3. Compared to the other ships, Ladrian can't and hasn't had any growth because they can't get past the stage of blushing and stuttering, whereas Lady Noir, Adrianette to some extent, and definitely Marie-Chat have had the opportunity to reevaluate their perception of each other. All of the other ships except Ladrian have grown in the sense that Adrien and Marinette have first established a friendship and seen every side to each other, their strengths, weaknesses, vulnerability, confidence, you name it, which is why Ladrian is also important. A relationship can't survive merely on romantic attraction. It needs both romance and friendship, which the other ships have, but Ladrian lacks. I think a missed opportunity was that Ladrian could have been that ship where Ladybug and Adrien open up about the pressure they face of being so perfect in the public eye. Of course, having some sort of image you have to uphold is stressful. Ladybug cannot mess up and neither can Adrien, otherwise it ruins their public image. Have them talk about how hard it is being so perfect and that nobody sees them for who they are, which is a human being like everyone else with problems, fears, anxieties and whatnot. Have them understand each other, and that would have been so good. Now Marie-Chat, and you guys know I have to say it. Marie-Chat for the win. Marie-Chat Nation, we won. Marie-Chat is the platonic side of the square, the bridge between Lady Noir and Adrianette. And what that means is it allows both Adrien and Marinette to slow down, take a breather, and really understand each other without any form of romantic attraction clouding their thoughts and feelings. Because there's no romance in Marie-Chat, they have a strong foundation for friendship, and therefore are able to see each other in ways that they're not able to within the other ships. Notice how when Marisha had their first major scene in Glaciator Season 2, Lady Noir and Adrianette became stronger. Honestly, one of the biggest reasons why I think Season 2 remains undefeated thus far. My point is, there are certain conversations Cat Noir wouldn't have with Ladybug, but he'd have with Marinette, ironically being the same person. Whilst we know there are definitely a lot of conversations Marinette wouldn't have with Adrien, but wouldn't hesitate having with Cat Noir. There are many routes that the reverse love square can take, but my personal fave is through Marisha. There's just that level of comfort within Marisha. I absolutely love Glaciator 2.0 for that reason. Cat Noir has never seen Marinette get so blown up, but of course this was all comedic relief, and their cinema date was so wholesome. Marisha establishes the opportunity for growth. Sometimes characters need other characters to help them grow and develop, and that's exactly what Marisha is. If Marinette wasn't at that cinema date with Cat Noir, she never would have confessed that,
"When things are really important to me, I get so scared that it won't work out that I can't help trying to control every possible outcome. And what people see is not Marinette opening her heart up. It's Marinette talking about some ridiculous nonsense she's made up."
And Cat Noir would have never been able to help her understand that you have to be sincere with your feelings, even if it is scary to show such a vulnerable side of yourself to someone, if you want your words to be truly heard. I could go on and on about Marisha, but I've already made like 4 videos on them, which I'll link down in the description box below. And that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it and can see why the love square is so integral to the series, regardless of what your favorite ship in the square is. But now I want to hear your thoughts. What do you think is the most complex ship in the square, and why? What would you like to see in the future from the love square? Let me know down in the comments below. As for today, that's it from me, and I'll see you again next time. Bye!